Carved into the stones of ancient cathedrals and stamped onto humble tools, a forgotten language hides in plain sight. These medieval Guildmarks were far more than simple signatures. They formed a complex code that controlled entire economies, protected priceless trade secrets, and forged unbreakable bonds between craftsmen. By the end of this exploration, you will be able to look at a 700-year-old building and read the personal stories etched into its walls. We will uncover how a single symbol could guarantee the quality of a sword or ruin a master's reputation, and why some believe these marks held esoteric secrets known only to initiates. What does the signature we leave on our own work truly say about us? Europe in the centuries after Rome's fall was a world of isolated towns and local markets. There was no central authority to guarantee the quality of the goods you bought. If a roof beam cracked or a newly purchased knife snapped in two, you had little recourse. Into this uncertainty stepped the Craftsmen's Guild. These were not merely clubs, they were the backbone of the medieval economy, forming powerful alliances of masons, blacksmiths, weavers, and carpenters within the newly thriving cities. A guild's primary mission was control. It controlled who could practice a trade, how they were trained, and the standards their work had to meet. This created a powerful need for accountability. When a master mason signed a contract to build a cathedral wall, the patron needed to know that every single stone met the guild's strict quality, and so the mark was born. It was a promise etched in stone or stamped in metal. This simple symbol transformed an anonymous block of limestone into the responsibility of a specific artisan. It was a system of quality control in a world without barcodes or brand names, making the craftsman personally answerable for his work for years, even decades to come. This direct link between creator and creation forged a powerful sense of pride and reputation, a currency as valuable as gold in the crowded, competitive streets of a medieval town. This simple mark carved into stone was a craftsman's entire world compressed into a single shape. It was his legal signature, his brand, and his unbreakable promise all at once. Think of it like the barcode on a modern product, but with the personal responsibility of a signed contract. When a customer saw that familiar symbol on a piece of furniture or the foundation stone of a house, they knew it had passed the guild's rigorous inspection. This was a guarantee of quality in an age without consumer protection agencies. That mark told everyone that the wool cloth would not shrink, the iron hinge would not rust through, and the chest was built from properly seasoned wood. It was a silent advertisement that traveled on every item leaving the workshop, building a master's reputation with every successful commission. But this system also had teeth. If a beam sagged or a blade dulled too quickly, guild officials could track that flawed item directly back to its creator using the very same symbol. A single poor decision could permanently tarnish a mark, and with it, a craftsman's ability to earn a living. This made every chisel stroke a testament to his skill, his honor, and his family's future. The mark was not just a claim of authorship, it was a badge of accountability that tied a man's name to the integrity of his work for all to see. So how do you begin to read this silent language carved in stone and wood? Start by looking for the common shapes that appeared again and across different trades. A circle was rarely just a circle. In a world striving for divine perfection, this shape with no beginning and no end represented unity, completeness, and the flawless nature of a master's work. A square with its 4 equal sides was a public promise of stability, honesty, and solid craftsmanship. These foundational shapes formed the bedrock of a visual vocabulary understood from the shipyards of the Baltic to the quarries of France. To make their craft instantly recognizable, artisans would often weave the tools of their trade directly into their mark. A stonemason might use a simple hammer or set square. A tailor could embed the shape of his shears. A weaver might use the distinct outline of a comb. This immediately told any literate observer this item was made by a member of this specific guild. But the marks could convey much more than just a name and a profession. Animal motifs added a powerful layer of symbolic meaning. A lion symbolized not just strength, but also courage and nobility, qualities a guild wished to project. A lamb could represent purity and gentleness, perhaps used by a maker of fine altar cloths or religious garments. Even the direction a line was pointing or its intersection with another could hold specific meaning, subtly indicating whether the craftsman was a senior master or a journeyman still completing his training. By learning this basic alphabet of shapes and symbols, you can start to decode the rich stories embedded in the walls of an old church or the leg of an antique chair, transforming silent stone into a conversation with the past. These marks of identity transformed every construction site into a living ledger. A master builder overseeing a cathedral's progress could walk along a wall of freshly laid stones and know instantly who had placed each one, simply by reading the unique symbols carved into their surfaces. This was not merely about pride, it was a practical system for managing a massive, complex workforce. The quarry master used these marks to account for work done, ensuring each mason was paid for the exact number of stones he had cut and delivered. Think of it as a medieval timesheet etched permanently into the very materials of the building. To create this personal signature, a craftsman often distilled his identity into a simple, memorable shape. He might combine the first letter of his name with a geometric pattern, or adopt a simplified symbol that held personal meaning, like a stylized bird or a particular arrangement of lines. This mark became his professional identity, a medieval social security number that followed him throughout his career. But the story did not stop with the individual. Many marks also proudly announced where a craftsman came from. A mason from a city known for its fine limestone might incorporate a local heraldic symbol, like a tower or a key, into his personal mark. This immediately signaled his affiliation with a specific guild hall in a specific town, a mark of origin that guaranteed a certain standard of training and material. This dual system of identification wove a powerful web of accountability. A flawed stone could be traced back to the individual who cut it, and through him to the guild that certified his skills. This network of responsibility stretched from the quarry to the soaring cathedral spire, ensuring that every single contributor, from the most junior apprentice to the master architect, could be recognized for his good work and held responsible for his mistakes. This signature carved into a product was far more than a name. It was a public guarantee of its quality and a direct reflection of the craftsman's hard-won status. After years of grueling apprenticeship and a perilous period as a journeyman, a craftsman faced his final trial, the creation of his masterpiece. This was not merely a beautiful object, it was a practical demonstration of every skill the guild demanded. Success meant acceptance as a master and the right to use the guild's official stamp of approval. That specific, often more complex, mark was a certified seal. It told any buyer that this chest, this sword, this length of cloth was produced by a fully qualified artisan whose work met the highest standards. Think of it as the medieval equivalent of an official quality assurance sticker. Guild wardens, senior masters themselves, conducted rigorous and often surprise inspections of workshops and market stalls. They would check for flaws in workmanship, the purity of materials, and the precise dimensions mandated by guild regulations. An item bearing an approved master's mark had passed this intense scrutiny. It was a signal of trust in a crowded marketplace, and that trust had a direct financial value. A piece of furniture stamped with a recognized master's mark could command a significantly higher price than a similar but unmarked item. In some specialized trades, a unique symbol might even indicate something extraordinary about the product itself. A blacksmith might use a special crown or star to show a blade was forged from a particularly high-grade steel, perhaps imported at great cost. A silversmith could embed a tiny, intricate symbol to certify that an object was made using a secret, guild-protected technique, a method known only to a handful of initiated masters. This transformed the humble craft mark from a simple label of origin into a powerful and trusted brand, a silent promise of excellence that echoed through the bustling markets of the medieval world. The silent language of the guilds reaches its most eloquent expression in the mason's mark, high on the soaring walls of a cathedral or deep within a castle's foundation. These personal signatures were carved into finished stone just before it was locked into place for centuries. Each mark was as unique as the man who wielded the chisel, a simple geometric design chosen for speed and ease of carving. A foreman walking the scaffolding could glance at a wall and see not just stone, but a roster of his entire team, their work and their wages accounted for in a permanent stone ledger. The true power of this system reveals itself when we study the patterns these marks leave behind. By mapping their locations across a single structure like Chartres Cathedral, historians can reconstruct the entire social landscape of the medieval building site. A cluster of identical marks might show where one particularly fast or skilled mason focused his efforts. The sudden appearance of a new, foreign symbol, perhaps a stylized knot used in a distant region, signals the arrival of a traveling journeyman, bringing new techniques from across the continent. The sequence of construction unfolds as well, with different marks appearing in the early foundational layers compared to the intricate stonework of the later spires. These simple carvings transform a silent, monolithic building into a dynamic story of human collaboration, telling us not just how it was built, but who built it and how they organized their world one perfect stone at a time. While the mason's signature was carved for all to see, the woodworker's mark was often a hidden whisper. Carpenters, joiners, and furniture makers developed an equally sophisticated language of symbols, but they frequently stamped or carved their tokens in secret. You would find these marks on the unexposed underside of a great oak chest, or quietly incised into the back of a carved panel, a private message meant for the eyes of other craftsmen and guild inspectors. This was not a signature for the customer's benefit, but a practical code embedded within the structure itself. A simple symbol could tell you which workshop the piece came from, the specific type of wood used, or certify that its dimensions and joinery methods strictly followed the guild's rulebook. The true genius of this system shines in massive collaborative projects like shipbuilding or the construction of a cathedral's enormous roof. Here, woodworkers used assembly marks, a kind of pre-industrial instruction manual carved directly onto the beams. These were often simple numbering systems or matching pairs of symbols, like a triangle on one beam that would only fit perfectly against the identical triangle on another. This ensured that hundreds of prefabricated components, shaped in workshops sometimes miles away, would lock together flawlessly on the chaotic building site. That simple carved triangle was more than a guide. It was a promise that every piece had a predetermined place, a testament to the remarkable organization and foresight of craftsmen who built towering structures without a single sheet of modern blueprints. While the woodworker's mark was a hidden whisper, the blacksmith's signature was a shout forged in fire and iron. Metalworkers faced a unique challenge. Their creations were often small, hard, and smooth, leaving no soft surface for a simple carved symbol. Their solution was as direct as their craft. They used a steel punch. This was a hardened rod with a master's unique symbol raised in reverse on its tip. With a single, sharp blow, he would hammer this punch into the glowing, red-hot surface of a newly forged blade or tool, permanently impressing his identity into the very grain of the metal. This was not a signature that could be sanded away or worn off with time. It was fused into the object's soul. On a simple hoe or a horseshoe, this mark was a straightforward promise of durability, a guarantee that the iron was sound and the workmanship would last. But for the armorer and the swordsmith, this small impression carried the weight of a human life. A knight trusting his safety to a suit of plate armor, or a soldier relying on his sword not to shatter in a desperate parry, was placing his faith in that tiny, stamped symbol. It was a maker's oath that the steel had been properly tempered, the laminations were solid, and the weapon would not fail when it was needed most. This bond of trust became so powerful that counterfeiting a master smith's mark was no mere forgery, it was a deadly fraud. Any artisan caught stamping another's symbol onto inferior goods faced severe punishment, from crippling fines to permanent expulsion from the guild and the town. This protected not only the master's hard-won reputation but, more importantly, the safety of every person who depended on the quality of the metal in their hands. While the blacksmith's mark was a shout of strength, the weaver's code was a whisper of color and texture woven directly into the fabric of daily life. In the bustling textile halls of medieval Europe, a simple symbol stamped on a bolt of cloth or subtly woven into its edge could tell you everything you needed to know. This was the clothier's mark, a comprehensive certification of quality. It guaranteed that the wool was of a specific grade, the cloth was the exact width and length required by law, and that it had passed the intense scrutiny of official guild inspectors. These inspections often took place in grand, designated cloth halls, where wardens would meticulously measure and feel the material, searching for any flaw before granting their official stamp of approval. This system was the engine of international commerce. A merchant in Venice or Bruges could purchase a shipment of English wool cloth sight unseen, trusting entirely in the symbol stamped upon it. That small mark eliminated the need for a risky, expensive journey to inspect the goods personally. It was a universal language of commerce that built trust across vast distances and different cultures. Dyers, the alchemists of the medieval world, used their own specialized marks to indicate the source and quality of their colors. A particular symbol might signify that a brilliant scarlet was achieved using kermes, a dye made from crushed insects that was incredibly rare and expensive. Another mark could promise a deep, fast blue from precious indigo. In an age where color was a direct indicator of wealth and status, these marks were not just labels, they were badges of prestige. A small, woven symbol could instantly communicate the origin of the material, the skill of its maker, and the sheer luxury of its color, transforming a simple length of cloth into a story of far-off lands, secret recipes, and impeccable craftsmanship. But beneath this practical world of commerce and quality control, a deeper current flowed. The same symbol that guaranteed a stone's dimensions might also hold a secret known only to the initiated. For the master masons who built Europe's great cathedrals, their marks were more than just signatures. They were keys to a hidden world of esoteric knowledge. A simple compass or set square, tools every mason used daily, carried a profound double meaning. In the hands of an initiate, these shapes represented moral and philosophical ideals, the pursuit of spiritual truth through geometric perfection. A circle might symbolize the eternal nature of the soul, while a triangle could point to the harmony between the earthly, the human, and the divine. These were not just construction workers, they were men who believed they were building the kingdom of heaven on earth, one sacred geometric ratio at a time. Their personal marks, often intricate combinations of lines and arcs, could encode the stages of their own spiritual journey towards enlightenment, a path of knowledge as rigorous as their physical apprenticeship. This shared secret language created an unbreakable brotherhood that transcended town borders and even languages. A traveling mason from Germany could arrive at a French building site, show his mark to the local master, and if it contained the right hidden geometries, he would be welcomed not as a foreign laborer, but as a brother. This system protected their most valuable asset, not the secret of how to cut a stone, but the deeper secrets of their craft, the sacred principles of architecture and proportion that were believed to hold cosmic power. In this light, the humble mason's mark transforms. It is no longer just a brand or a timekeeping device. It becomes a silent passport into an exclusive fraternity, a testament that the man who carved it was not merely a craftsman, but a guardian of ancient wisdom. That personal symbol was a living document of a craftsman's entire career. It did not spring forth fully formed, but grew and changed just as the man himself did. A young boy entering a workshop as an apprentice would not even have the right to his own mark. For years, his work was considered an extension of his master's. He might be allowed to practice carving a simple, provisional shape, or more commonly, his early tasks would bear the master's own stamp. This was a powerful lesson in humility and quality. Every item he touched had to uphold the reputation of the workshop, teaching him that a mark was not a claim of ego, but a burden of responsibility. When his apprenticeship ended, he entered a new and transformative phase, becoming a journeyman. This name comes from the French word for day, journée, because he was now paid daily for his labor, and most importantly, he was expected to travel. This was his university, a years-long journey across the land to work with different masters, learn new regional techniques, and see the world. And as he traveled, his mark traveled with him, slowly evolving. A mason from Cologne might spend a year working on a cathedral in Strasbourg and add a single, unique line to his signature, a subtle nod to the architectural style he learned there. A blacksmith from England might work in a Milanese armory and incorporate a local floral motif into his punch design. His mark became a visual passport filled with the souvenirs of his education. The final, dramatic transformation of his symbol came with the ultimate test, the masterpiece. To become a master, he had to produce a single work that demonstrated complete mastery of his craft, a piece judged flawless by the senior guild members. Only upon their approval was he granted the right to use his full, unique, and permanently registered mark. This was not just a new design, it was the official seal of his hard-won status. That final symbol told a complete story. Anyone who knew how to read this visual language could look at a master's mark and see the ghost of his apprentice's simple shape, the layered influences from his travels as a journeyman, and the confident, complex design that announced he had arrived. His life's journey was literally etched into his identity, a permanent record of growth written in a language of symbols. That simple carved symbol was a legally binding signature. In the crowded market squares and official courts of a medieval town, a Guildmark carried the full weight of a sworn oath. If a customer claimed a newly purchased iron lock had broken, they did not have to track down the smith who made it. They simply brought the lock itself, with the master's unique stamp still visible before the guild's own court. That physical mark was all the evidence needed to summon the craftsman and begin a formal inquiry. Guilds kept meticulous ledgers like a medieval copyright office, where every master's personal symbol was carefully recorded next to his name. Presenting a flawed or misrepresented item bearing a registered mark was a straightforward path to justice. ensuring that a consumer could trust the goods they bought and that a craftsman would be held accountable for his work. This legal power also served as a powerful shield for the artisan himself. His registered mark was his proof of ownership, protecting him from rivals who might try to pass off inferior goods under his good name. A weaver could prove a bolt of cloth was his genuine work, securing his payment from a distant merchant. A carpenter could use the assembly marks hidden within a piece of furniture to demonstrate it was built to the guild's exact specifications, defending himself against a false claim of shoddy work. This system created a self-policing commercial world where the mark itself enforced the rules. A master knew that any failure of his work would be traced directly back to him through that symbol, damaging not only his personal reputation but the standing of his entire guild. This powerful combination of consumer protection and artisan rights, all encoded in a single shape, wove a fabric of trust that held the medieval marketplace together. This language of symbols held immense power, and like any language, it could be used to condemn as well as to praise. For every master whose mark became a trusted brand, there was the chilling threat of its opposite, the shame mark. Guilds maintained strict control not just over quality, but over the moral conduct of their members. A craftsman caught using inferior materials, consistently producing shoddy work, or cheating customers on price faced a punishment far worse than a simple fine. He could be ordered to stamp his next batch of goods with a special, publicly recognized symbol of disgrace. This was not a hidden mark. It was designed to be seen and understood by everyone. Imagine a shoemaker forced to nail a specific, humiliating shape onto every pair of shoes he sold for a year, or a baker required to imprint a distinct, dishonorable symbol onto his loaves of bread. This shame mark was a scarlet letter for commerce. No one would willingly purchase an item they knew was officially declared substandard. The financial impact was immediate and devastating. But the true punishment was social. That mark broadcast his failure to the entire community, shattering the reputation he had spent a lifetime building. It was a form of economic exile that left his workshop idle and his family impoverished. In the most severe cases, for repeat offenders or those who committed unforgivable breaches of trust, the ultimate sentence was passed. A craftsman could be permanently expelled from the guild. This was a professional death sentence. He was stripped of the right to use his personal mark forever and forbidden from practicing his trade within the guild's territory. Without that official symbol, he was a ghost in the marketplace, unable to sell his wares or hire apprentices. The guild's control over this symbolic language was absolute, proving that a simple shape could build a man's world, or with a single decree could bring it all crashing down. A German stonemason carving his mark into the foundation of a northern cathedral would choose sharp, intersecting lines and forms that echoed the angular runes of his homeland. Just a few hundred miles to the south, an Italian craftsman working on a Florentine palace would create a signature of flowing curves and elegant loops, inspired by the classical art surrounding him. This was the deep dialect of the guilds, a silent language that changed its accent with every river valley and mountain range. In England, marks often appeared straightforward and pragmatic, a no-nonsense series of notches and crosses designed for speed and clarity on a busy building site. Meanwhile, French marks frequently displayed a heraldic flair, incorporating shields, fleurs de lis, and other decorative elements that spoke of a craftsman's pride and his connection to a specific town or noble patron. These were not random artistic choices. They were the visual fingerprints of a region's entire cultural and artistic history, pressed into stone and wood by the hands of its workers. For a historian today, this regional vocabulary is a powerful tool. Finding a distinctly German angular mark high up in an English cathedral spire is not just a curiosity. It is concrete evidence of a traveling journeyman from the Rhineland who brought his unique skills across the sea. The sudden appearance of a fluid, Italianate symbol in a French town record tells a story of cultural exchange, of new artistic ideas flowing north along trade routes, carried not in books but in the muscle memory and chisels of itinerant craftsmen. By simply mapping these symbols, we can reconstruct the invisible highways of knowledge that connected medieval Europe. We can watch as a specific style of arch or a novel joinery technique spreads from one region to another, not through royal decree, but through the slow, steady migration of individual artisans, each one leaving his unique, geographically coded signature as a permanent record of his journey. This silent language of craftsmanship did not remain confined to the workshop. The most powerful guilds carried their symbols out of the back alleys and into the very heart of civic life, etching their identity onto the public face of the city itself. You can see this legacy in the grand guild halls that still dominate medieval town squares. These were not just meeting houses, they were palaces of commerce, and their stone facades were often a tapestry of Guildmarks carved for all to see. A massive stone lintel might feature the intertwined symbols of the city's most influential crafts, from the blacksmith's hammer to the carpenter's square, announcing to every visitor that this town's wealth was forged by the hands of its artisans. This was a bold declaration of economic power and civic pride, a permanent monument to the men who built the city, literally and figuratively. The ultimate honor was for a guild symbol to be incorporated into the town's own official coat of arms. A sheaf of wheat gracefully woven into the shield might represent the powerful baker's guild, whose work fed the entire population. A sleek ship under full sail could symbolize the merchant guilds, whose trade routes brought prosperity from across the seas. This was the complete blurring of the line between commercial identity and civic heraldry. When a town used the clothmaker's symbol on its official seal to stamp documents, it was making a profound statement. It declared that the community's identity, its very sovereignty, was inseparable from the skill and organization of its craftsmen. The Guildmark, born as a simple signature of accountability, had evolved into a heraldic emblem of an entire city's soul. The revolutionary clatter of the printing press demanded a new kind of signature. As books began to flow from workshops in the 15th century, the printers who operated these complex machines immediately reached for an ancient tradition to establish their place in the world. They created the printer's mark, a symbolic emblem that proudly announced the birth of a new craft guild. You would find these intricate designs on the title page or in the colophon of an early printed book, often as elaborate as a noble family's coat of arms. One famous printer might use a shield held by two angels, while another chose a majestic eagle or a fruitful tree, each symbol rich with personal meaning. This was far more than decoration. Just as a mason's mark guaranteed the quality of a stone, the printer's device guaranteed the quality of the words on the page. In an age of exploding information, this symbol told a scholar that the text had been set with care, that the Latin was correct, and that the pages were bound properly. It was a brand for the printing house, a promise that you could trust this volume against all the cheap imitations starting to flood the market. This practice created a powerful bridge, directly linking the radical new technology of mass communication with the timeless, guild-honored principles of craft identity and accountability. The men who wielded this new power were, in their hearts, still craftsmen, and they signed their world-changing work with the same pride as any master mason or blacksmith. A master's unique stamp was once the bedrock of commerce, but that foundation began to crack. The tightly controlled world of the guilds could not withstand the seismic shifts of a new age. As the medieval period waned, powerful kings and queens consolidated their authority, creating vast nation-states with centralized laws and economies. These new governments saw the guilds' local monopolies as obstacles to national trade and progress. An economic philosophy known as mercantilism took hold, prioritizing state power and the accumulation of national wealth over the privileges of local craftsmen. Why should a single town's carpenters' guild control prices and production when a king wanted to build an entire navy? The old rules of protected trades and guaranteed quality began to seem outdated, even restrictive, in a world now connected by global shipping lanes and ambitious royal courts. The guild's power to enforce their symbolic language of quality was slowly being stripped away by royal edicts and new commercial codes that favored a freer and far larger market. This erosion was gradual, but the final blow was swift and mechanical. The Industrial Revolution did not simply change how things were made, it redefined the very relationship between a worker and his work. The rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer was drowned out by the relentless thunder of the steam hammer. The careful stroke of a weaver's shuttle was replaced by the hypnotic, automatic dance of the power loom. In the vast, noisy factories that now dominated the landscape, products were no longer born from the skill of a single pair of hands. They were assembled by rows of anonymous laborers, each performing one tiny, repetitive task. There was no single master responsible for the entire creation, and therefore no need for his personal mark of accountability. The unique signature that guaranteed a chest or a sword was replaced by a standardized corporate logo, stamped onto thousands of identical items. This logo was not a promise of quality from a man you might meet in the town square. It was a brand, a marketing tool for a faceless company. The profound, personal connection between the maker, his symbol, and the object itself was irrevocably severed. The secret language of the guilds, a code built on pride and personal honor, fell silent, a casualty of progress and the relentless march of the machine. Recovering this silent language requires the patience of a master detective. Historians and archaeologists piece together clues from three primary sources, building a vocabulary one symbol at a time. The first and most crucial are the guild archives themselves. In a dusty town record office, you might find a centuries-old ledger, its pages filled with meticulous drawings. Next to a name like Hans the Mason or Giovanni the Weaver is a carefully inked symbol, a direct registration of that craftsman's professional identity. This is the Rosetta Stone for researchers, providing an official key to decode the marks found out in the wild. But these records are incredibly rare, so the investigation continues onto the buildings and objects. By comparing a specific mark found on a cathedral's foundation, which has a known construction date, to the same mark on its later spires, historians can track a single craftsman's decades-long career on one site. Finding that identical symbol on a dated town hall in another city then maps his journey across the countryside. This comparative analysis builds a reliable timeline, allowing experts to say with confidence that this particular arrangement of lines was in use by a specific mason during a precise 20-year period. The final layer of decipherment is deeply human. Researchers analyze hundreds of marks statistically, looking for subtle patterns. They might notice that a certain master's complex design appears alongside a simpler, similar version. Could this be the mark of his son or his chief apprentice, a junior craftsman echoing his teacher's identity while slowly developing his own? Another cluster of marks from the same workshop might all share a common geometric element, a visual signature of their shared training. This painstaking work is more than academic. It rebuilds the social network of the medieval workshop, revealing the family ties and mentorship bonds that were the true foundation of these monumental projects. Each decoded symbol restores a name and a story to a face lost to history, turning anonymous stone back into the legacy of a man named Klaus or Pierre. The silent carvings on ancient walls are finally finding their voice in the digital age. Modern technology is breathing new life into these medieval symbols, transforming dusty stone into dynamic data. High-resolution 3D scanning is at the forefront of this revolution. A scanner can capture the surface of a worn stone with incredible precision, mapping every minute groove and fracture. This digital eye can detect the faintest shadow of a mark that has been all but erased by 500 years of wind and rain, revealing the original depth and tool strokes used by the mason, details completely invisible to someone just squinting at the wall. But the real power emerges when these individual scans are brought together. Researchers are building massive digital databases, compiling thousands of marks from cathedrals, castles, and town halls across the entire continent. Imagine having the personal signatures of every stonemason who worked from England to Bohemia all accessible in a single searchable archive. This allows for a kind of digital archaeology. A historian in Spain can take a mysterious mark from a local monastery and run it against the entire database, searching for a visual match from a registered workshop in Germany or a similar pattern from a known craftsman in France. These connections, which once would have required a lifetime of travel and luck, can now be discovered in an afternoon. The process is being pushed even further with artificial intelligence. Scientists are training AI algorithms to recognize the complex geometric patterns within the marks, teaching them to sort and categorize symbols automatically. The AI can analyze thousands of marks and spot subtle, recurring design families that a human eye might miss, perhaps identifying the unique stylistic flourishes of a single master teacher and all the apprentices he trained over his long career. These tools are not replacing the historian, they are giving them superhuman sight, processing vast amounts of visual data to uncover the hidden social networks and migratory patterns of medieval craftsmen on a scale that was once unimaginable, bringing us to the very brink of fluency in a language we once could only guess at. That medieval symbol carved into stone is not a relic, it is a prototype. The same psychological impulse that made a buyer trust a mason's mark 700 years ago is what makes you reach for a product with a familiar logo today. We are still using this visual shorthand, only now it flashes on a screen instead of being stamped in iron. The sleek Apple and the dynamic Nike swoosh are the direct descendants of the blacksmith's punch and the weaver's seal. They function in precisely the same way, compressing a vast promise of quality, origin, and identity into a single, silent shape. This is not a coincidence, it is a continuation of a fundamental human need to trust the symbol behind the object. Our modern world did not abandon the guild system, it industrialized it, scaling a local mark of personal accountability into a global brand of corporate identity. This deep-seated instinct for trusted symbols even survives in its most literal form, the hallmark on a piece of silver or gold. That tiny, legally enforced stamp of a lion or an anchor is a direct, unbroken lineage from the guild wardens who certified the purity of a silversmith's work. When you check for that mark on a precious ring, you are performing the exact same act of verification as a medieval merchant judging a bolt of cloth. Every time you look for a certification seal on food, a recognized brand name on a tool, or a trusted logo on a device, you are participating in a ritual of commerce and trust that was perfected in the crowded, competitive markets of the Middle Ages. The language of the guilds did not vanish, it simply evolved, proving that the most enduring human contracts are not written in words, but etched into our collective memory as symbols. This romantic image of Guildmarks as treasure maps is a story we desperately want to be true. The idea that a simple symbol carved on a cathedral wall might point the way to a hidden vault of gold or encode a lost alchemical formula is incredibly compelling. It connects these hard-working craftsmen to a world of shadowy secrets and ancient mysteries, and it is true that the later, speculative Freemasons did draw inspiration from the traditions of the actual stonemasons, adopting their tools and some of their symbolic language. But for the vast majority of medieval craftsmen, their mark was not a key to esoteric knowledge. It was the key to getting paid. The Romantic myth often falls apart under the cold light of historical evidence. If these marks were secret maps, why are they so often carved in the most visible, easily accessible places on a building, meant to be seen and read by the foreman? If they held complex initiation codes, why do we find such a wide variety of personal, almost whimsical designs, from simple crossed lines to shapes that look like a child's doodle? The reality is that these marks served a brilliantly pragmatic purpose in a world without digital records or corporate branding. They solved a fundamental problem of trust and accountability in a sprawling, complex economy. A master mason did not need to hide a treasure map in his signature. His treasure was his reputation, a reputation built one reliably cut stone at a time, and that was a secret worth protecting far more than any fictional chest of gold. By letting go of the folklore, we do not diminish these craftsmen. We honor them for what they truly were, not as keepers of magical secrets, but as the brilliant engineers and innovators of their age, who built a system of commerce so robust that its echoes still shape our world today. Your next stroll through a medieval cathedral can feel like walking through a gallery of forgotten autographs. Instead of gazing only at the grand arches and stained glass, train your eyes on the stone itself. Start your search on the plain, well-fitted blocks that form the walls, especially near the foundation and around window and door frames. These were often the first stones laid, and their surfaces are frequently rich with the simple, geometric carvings of the masons who placed them. Look for shapes that seem too deliberate to be accidental damage. A perfect five-pointed star chiseled into the corner, a series of interlocking triangles, or a lone arrow pointing toward the heavens. Each one is a personal signature, a craftsman staking his claim on a single piece of eternity. Shift your gaze upward in an old timber-framed building, examining the massive oak beams that support the ceiling. On the unexposed upper surfaces, you might find the faint, carved symbol of the carpenter who shaped it, a mark never meant for customers but for the guild and for history. Run your fingers over the cold iron of an ancient gate or a church door hinge. Search for a small, stamped impression, the blacksmith's punch mark that guaranteed its strength. Discovering one of these symbols yourself is a moment of pure connection. That triangle you find was not carved by some abstract force of history. It was carved by a man with a name, perhaps Klaus, who had a sore back from a long day's labor and a family to feed. He left this small, deliberate message not for kings or bishops, but for his foreman, his guild, and remarkably for you. In that instant, the monolithic scale of history collapses into a single, human moment, a silent handshake across the centuries that reminds us these magnificent structures were not just built, they were earned, one perfect mark at a time. These simple carvings are a direct window into the medieval soul. They reveal a world built on three unshakable pillars: quality, accountability, and community. A master's reputation was not just a matter of pride, it was his single most valuable possession, a form of social currency that could open doors or slam them shut forever. His mark was the physical incarnation of that reputation, a public declaration that his character was inseparable from the character of his work. This was a culture that understood honor not as an abstract idea, but as something forged in the heat of the forge and proven with every chisel stroke. The entire structure of a craftsman's life, that long and arduous journey from a silent apprentice to an independent master, was a story told through the evolution of his symbol. This progression was a central life narrative, as significant as marriage or family, defining a man's place in the world. In an age where every object was touched by human hands, your work was not just what you did, it was who you were. The Guildmarks celebrated the unique union of an individual's hand and mind, a testament to the belief that creation itself was a sacred act. This deep-seated need to make our mark, to connect our identity to what we build, and to belong to a fellowship of creators, is not a relic of history. It is a fundamental human impulse that still calls to us from the silent stones, asking what our own work says about who we are. The secret language of Guildmarks was the invisible framework that held the medieval world together. It was a sophisticated system of trust that governed everything from the price of a loaf of bread to the structural integrity of a cathedral's vault. These simple symbols provided a universal code of skill, accountability, and identity, creating a bridge of faith between a craftsman and his community. They allow us to bypass the silence of the history books and connect directly with the individuals who shaped that world. We can stand before a 700-year-old wall and not just see an anonymous monument, but read the personal stories of Klaus the Mason and Giovanni the Smith, their pride and their promises etched permanently into the materials of their labor. This ancient system of identity is not a forgotten relic. Its legacy pulses through our modern world every time we instinctively reach for a product with a trusted logo or look for a certification seal. That act of faith in a symbol is a direct echo from the medieval marketplace, so the next time your eye is caught by a familiar brand emblem, remember the long lineage of that idea. Remember the master craftsmen who, with a single chisel stroke or a hammer's blow, pioneered the profound concept that a simple, silent shape can carry the full weight of a human promise. If this journey into the silent language of stone and iron has sparked your curiosity, you can continue the exploration right here. Liking this video and subscribing to the channel fuels our deep dives into the forgotten corners of history. We want to hear from you. What is the most intriguing symbol or mysterious mark you have ever spotted on an old building or an antique find? Share your stories and photographs in the comments below. Your personal discoveries help build a living archive of these secret signatures, and tap that notification bell so you are always ready for our next adventure into the past. The stories are everywhere, carved into the world around us. Keep looking closer. History is waiting for you to read it.